The story of runic writing begins in the cold landscapes of northern Europe during a transformative period spanning from the 3rd to the 11th centuries CE, known as the Early Middle Ages. Picture yourself standing in the harsh, unforgiving terrain of ancient Scandinavia, where the first runic inscriptions emerged among Germanic peoples who would later become known as the Vikings. These ancient lands, stretching from the mist-covered fjords of Norway to the dense forests of northern Germany and the windswept plains of Denmark, formed the cradle of runic culture. The geography itself played a crucial role in shaping how these mysterious symbols developed and spread. The abundant supplies of wood, stone, and metal in these regions provided the perfect materials for carving these angular characters that would become known as runes. The Germanic tribes who dominated these territories were not a single unified group, but rather a diverse collection of peoples, including the Goths, Angles, Saxons, and later, the Vikings. These societies were interconnected through trade routes that crossed the Baltic and North Seas, creating a complex network of cultural exchange that helped spread runic knowledge across northern Europe. The climate and landscape profoundly influenced daily life and, consequently, the development of runic writing. Long, dark winters meant communities spent considerable time indoors, where storytelling and the preservation of knowledge became crucial cultural activities. The harsh environment demanded a writing system that could withstand the elements, which explains the practical, angular nature of runic characters that could be easily carved into durable materials. During this period, nomadic tribes from the Eurasian steppes also influenced the region, bringing with them different cultural practices and possibly contributing to the evolution of runic writing. The mobility of these peoples helped spread runic knowledge across vast territories, from Iceland in the west to the Russian territories in the east. As you walk through these ancient landscapes, imagine the scene: small settlements nestled between towering pine forests and rugged coastlines, where the howling wind carries the salt spray from the sea. In these settlements, rune masters would carefully carve their messages into standing stones, wooden posts, and metal objects. These weren't merely words, they were bridges between the physical and spiritual worlds, between the present and the ancient past. The runes emerged during a time of great migration and change in European history. As Roman influence waned in northern Europe, local cultures began to assert their own identities more strongly. The runic writing system became one of the most visible manifestations of this cultural independence, serving not only as a practical means of communication, but also as a symbol of Germanic cultural identity. The Vikings, who would later dominate much of northern Europe, were particularly instrumental in spreading runic writing beyond its original homeland. Their extensive trading networks and settlement patterns carried runic knowledge to places as far as Britain, Ireland, and even North America, leaving behind a legacy of inscriptions that continues to intrigue scholars and enthusiasts today. This world of ancient runes was more than just a historical epoch. It was a time when writing itself was seen as a magical act, when carving letters into stone could be both a practical message and a spiritual invocation. The runes emerged from this unique combination of geographical isolation, harsh climate, rich cultural exchange, and profound spiritual beliefs, creating a writing system that would endure for centuries and continue to captivate our imagination to this day. If you are passionate about the Middle Ages and want to embark on this historical journey with us, like the video and subscribe to the channel The Medieval Archives, so you don't miss any fascinating content. In the mystical world of runic writing, few figures commanded as much respect as the runic scribes, known as rune masters. These individuals were far more than mere writers or carvers. They were the living repositories of ancient wisdom, guardians of a sacred tradition that bridged the mortal world with the divine. A rune master's knowledge extended beyond the mere shapes of the characters. They understood the deeper meanings, the magical properties, and the precise rituals associated with runic inscription. The life of a rune master was one of dedication and careful study. They would spend years perfecting their craft, learning not only how to carve the runes, but also when and how to use them for maximum effect. These masters understood that each rune had its proper time, place, and purpose. They knew which woods were best for certain inscriptions, which stones would hold the power of particular spells, and which metals would carry specific messages to the gods. At the heart of runic tradition stands Odin, the All-Father of Norse mythology, whose connection to the runes is both profound and dramatic. According to the ancient poem Havamal, Odin sacrificed himself to himself, hanging from the world tree Yggdrasil for 9 days and 9 nights, pierced by his own spear, to gain the wisdom of the runes. This powerful story illustrates the Norse belief that true wisdom comes at a great price, and that the runes were not merely invented, but discovered through divine revelation. Odin's sacrifice established the pattern for how runic knowledge was traditionally passed down. The god's ordeal became a metaphor for the dedication required to master the runes, and his example showed that wisdom must be earned through personal sacrifice and dedication. As the god of wisdom, poetry, death, divination, and magic, Odin embodied the multifaceted nature of runic lore, at once practical, magical, and deeply spiritual. In the shadow of these towering figures, we find the apprentices, young individuals chosen for their intelligence, dedication, and spiritual sensitivity. These apprentices would typically begin their training in their early teens, selected either because they showed natural aptitude or because they came from families with traditional ties to runic lore. The path of an apprentice was not easy. They had to memorize not only the forms of the runes, but also their names, meanings, and proper uses in both magical and mundane contexts. The relationship between master and apprentice was deeply personal and often lasted many years. The master would gradually reveal the secrets of runic lore, teaching not just the technical skills of carving, but also the subtle arts of divination, blessing, and curse-making. Apprentices learned that each rune had 3 levels of meaning: the simple phonetic value, the practical significance, and the esoteric interpretation known only to initiates. Training involved practical skills like selecting and preparing materials, understanding how different surfaces would affect the rune's power, and learning the correct tools and techniques for carving. But beyond these physical skills, apprentices had to develop their spiritual awareness, learning to sense the right moments for certain types of runic work and understanding the complex web of wired fate that the runes could both reveal and influence. The preservation of runic knowledge was a sacred trust. Masters would often keep their most profound secrets until they were sure their apprentice was ready, sometimes waiting years before revealing certain mysteries. This careful transmission of knowledge helped ensure that the runes' power would not be misused and that their deeper meanings would not be lost or corrupted. These 3 figures, the master, the god, and the apprentice, formed a sacred triangle that preserved and transmitted runic wisdom through the centuries. The master represented the living tradition. Odin embodied the divine source of runic wisdom, and the apprentice ensured the continuation of this ancient knowledge into future generations. Together, they maintained a tradition that was at once practical and mystical, earthly and divine, personal and universal. Their legacy continues to influence how we understand and use runes today, reminding us that true wisdom requires not just learning, but dedication, sacrifice, and a deep respect for the mysteries that connect us to our ancestors and to the divine. At the heart of runic writing lies a profound story about the preservation of knowledge and the power of communication. This ancient system represents more than just a method of recording information. It embodies the delicate balance between preserving wisdom and controlling its transmission through generations. The central conflict that shaped runic writing emerged from the tension between oral tradition and written records. In Norse and Germanic societies, knowledge was traditionally passed down through spoken word, with skalds and elders serving as living repositories of cultural memory. The introduction of runic writing created a revolutionary shift in how information could be preserved and transmitted. This transition wasn't merely technological. It represented a fundamental change in how these societies understood and related to knowledge itself. Consider the complexity of this situation. While runic writing offered unprecedented opportunities to preserve information across time and distance, it also challenged the traditional power structures built around oral transmission. Those who held knowledge in their memories suddenly faced competition from carved stones and wooden staves that could speak across centuries without a human intermediary. The mystical and spiritual significance of runes added another layer to this cultural tension. Unlike modern writing systems, runes were never seen as merely practical tools. Each symbol was believed to connect directly to the supernatural world, carrying power that extended far beyond its simple phonetic value. Rune masters were not just scribes, but mediators between the mundane and divine realms. This spiritual dimension meant that the conflict between oral and written traditions played out not just in the social sphere, but in the religious and magical domains as well. The resistance to external cultural influences became particularly acute during the period of Christianization. As Latin alphabet and Christian practices began to spread across Northern Europe, runic writing became a symbol of cultural resistance. Communities faced difficult choices between maintaining their traditional runic practices and adopting the new writing system that came with the new religion. This wasn't simply about choosing between two writing systems, it was about preserving an entire worldview encoded within the runic tradition. The power dynamics of runic knowledge created complex social patterns. While some runes were used for everyday communications, others were reserved for religious ceremonies or magical practices. This division reflected deeper social structures, where certain types of knowledge were deliberately restricted to initiated individuals. The tension between democratizing knowledge through writing and maintaining its sacred character through restricted access created ongoing conflicts within these societies. As trade networks expanded and cultural contacts increased, runic writing faced new challenges. The system had to adapt to new sounds, new concepts, and new ways of thinking brought by contact with other cultures. Yet even as it evolved, there remained a strong drive to preserve its essential character as a uniquely Germanic form of expression. This balancing act between adaptation and preservation characterized much of runic writing's historical development. These conflicts and tensions never found a simple resolution. Instead, they contributed to the rich complexity of runic tradition, creating a system that was simultaneously practical and mystical, accessible and esoteric, traditional and adaptive. The story of runic writing thus becomes a testament to how societies negotiate the fundamental human need to both preserve and transform their cultural heritage. Through all these conflicts and challenges, runic writing maintained its distinctive character as a bridge between the visible and invisible worlds, between the practical needs of daily life and the profound mysteries of existence. This dual nature, more than any single feature, defines its unique place in human cultural history and explains its enduring fascination for subsequent generations. The daily life of Norse and Germanic peoples was deeply interwoven with runic writing, creating a rich tapestry of practical and spiritual applications that touched every level of society. From the humblest farmer to the most powerful jarl, runes played distinctive roles in shaping how people conducted their affairs and understood their place in the world. In the marketplace, merchants used runes to mark ownership on goods, record debts, and establish contracts. These commercial runes were often simplified versions, focused on practical communication rather than magical significance. Traders would carry wooden sticks marked with runic notches to keep track of transactions, a system so effective that it continued in some Scandinavian communities well into the medieval period. These merchant marks evolved into a specialized subset of runic writing, allowing even those with limited runic knowledge to participate in the commercial life of their communities. Religious and magical applications of runes operated on an entirely different level. In these contexts, runes were not merely written but ritualized. Priests and spiritual leaders would carefully select specific times, materials, and methods for carving runes intended for sacred purposes. The carving itself became a ceremony, often accompanied by chants, offerings, and precise ritual movements. These religious runes appeared on everything from temple posts to burial markers, creating a sacred geography that connected the physical landscape with the spiritual realm. The social hierarchy of runic knowledge was complex and nuanced. At the top stood the master rune carvers, individuals who had undergone years of training to understand not just the forms of runes, but their deeper meanings and powers. These masters often served as advisors to chiefs and kings, their knowledge giving them significant political influence. Below them were apprentice rune carvers, who might spend a decade or more learning their craft before being recognized as masters in their own right. The middle ranks of runic society included specialized practitioners who focused on particular applications of runic knowledge. Some specialized in medical runes, using their skills to create healing inscriptions and protective amulets. Others focused on legal runes, serving as a kind of combination of scribe and lawyer in their communities. These specialists occupied respected positions in society, though their status was below that of the master rune carvers. Among the common people, basic runic literacy varied widely. Many farmers and craftspeople knew enough runes to mark their property or leave simple messages, but their understanding rarely extended to the more complex, magical and religious applications. This created a fascinating dynamic, where runic writing served both as a universal practical tool and a marker of social distinction. Women played a particularly interesting role in runic society. While master rune carvers were predominantly male, women often possessed significant runic knowledge, particularly in relation to domestic magic and healing. Archaeological evidence suggests that women were often the keepers of runic knowledge within households, using runes for protection, fertility, and household management. The highest levels of society used runes as symbols of power and authority. Kings and chieftains would commission elaborate runic monuments to commemorate victories, mark territory, or honor ancestors. These grand inscriptions served multiple purposes. They were historical records, political statements, and demonstrations of the ruler's command over both mundane and magical power. The relationship between social class and runic usage was also reflected in the materials used for inscriptions. While wealthy individuals could commission runes carved in stone or precious metals, common people typically used wood, bone, or other readily available materials. This material hierarchy created a visible distinction between different levels of runic practice. Seasonal festivities and community gatherings provided occasions for different social classes to interact through runic practices. During these events, master rune carvers might perform public ceremonies, while common people could seek advice or commission protective inscriptions. These gatherings helped maintain social cohesion while reinforcing the hierarchical nature of runic knowledge. The complexity of runic society extended to its educational structures. While formal training was reserved for future masters, informal transmission of basic runic knowledge occurred within families and communities. This created a layered system of knowledge where different social groups had access to different levels of runic understanding, each appropriate to their social role and daily needs. This social structure around runic writing remained remarkably stable for centuries. adapting to changing circumstances while maintaining its essential character. Even as Christianity began to transform Norse society, the social patterns established around runic use continued to influence how communities organized themselves and understood their relationships to both written knowledge and magical power. If you're enjoying the story so far, let us know in the comments. What aspect of the Middle Ages surprised you the most? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, The Medieval Archives, to follow our next explorations. The story of runic writing begins with a mysterious transformation that would shape the course of Northern European history. The Elder Futhark, the oldest known form of runic writing, emerged around the 2nd century CE under circumstances that continue to intrigue scholars. This first runic alphabet, with its 24 characters, appears to have developed through contact with Mediterranean writing systems, yet it bears distinctive features that mark it as uniquely Germanic in both form and function. The birth of Elder Futhark represents a remarkable moment of cultural synthesis. While some elements show clear inspiration from Latin and Greek alphabets, the angular nature of the characters reveals an adaptation to the materials and tools available in the North. The creators of this system demonstrated remarkable insight, designing letters that could be easily carved into wood and stone using straight cuts, avoiding the curves that might splinter or crumble in these materials. A dramatic shift occurred around the 8th century CE with the transition to Younger Futhark. This transformation stands as one of the most puzzling developments in the history of writing systems. At a time when communication was becoming more complex, the number of runes was reduced from 24 to just 16 characters. This seemingly counterintuitive change presents us with what scholars call the rune stone paradox. Fewer characters were used to write more texts than ever before. The shift to Younger Futhark coincided with the Viking Age, suggesting a connection between these cultural changes. Some scholars propose that the simplified system facilitated faster writing and easier learning, supporting the rapid expansion of Viking trade and exploration. Others see it as a deliberate attempt to preserve runic knowledge during a time of significant social change, making the system more resilient by reducing its complexity. Perhaps the most profound transformation in runic history came with the arrival of Christianity in the North. This wasn't merely a change in religious practice. It represented a fundamental shift in how knowledge was understood and transmitted. The Christian Church brought with it the Latin alphabet and a new conception of writing as primarily a tool for preserving texts rather than a magical practice. Yet the story of Christianization reveals unexpected twists. Rather than disappearing immediately, runic writing adapted and survived alongside Latin script. In some areas, particularly Sweden, runic inscriptions actually increased after Christianization. Christian prayers and passages began to appear in runic form, creating fascinating hybrid monuments that bridged the pagan past and Christian present. The discovery of mysterious runic artifacts continues to add new chapters to this story. The Kilva stone found in Sweden contains the entire Elder Futhark sequence, along with cryptic inscriptions that suggest magical practices we still don't fully understand. The Rök runestone in Sweden stands as the most extensive runic inscription known, with multiple layers of meaning that continue to challenge interpreters. Recent archaeological finds have revolutionized our understanding of everyday runic use. The discovery of the Bergen Wharf inscriptions in Norway revealed hundreds of ordinary messages, including love letters, business notes, and even poetry, carved on wooden sticks. These findings transformed our view of runic literacy, showing it was more widespread than previously thought. Some of the most intriguing discoveries involve coded runes and cryptographic inscriptions. The practice of creating purposefully obscure messages suggests that runic writing served not just for communication, but also for concealment. These coded messages range from playful puzzles to serious magical formulas, adding another layer to our understanding of runic complexity. The story took another turn with the discovery of runic inscriptions in unexpected places. Runic graffiti has been found in ancient burial mounds, in the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, and even carved by Vikings who reached the shores of North America. These findings reveal the extraordinary reach of runic culture and its adaptability to new contexts. Modern archaeological techniques continue to uncover new evidence that reshapes our understanding. Ground-penetrating radar and 3D scanning have revealed previously invisible runic inscriptions on weathered stones. Chemical analysis of inks and carving residues has helped date inscriptions more accurately, sometimes challenging established chronologies. Perhaps most remarkably, some runic traditions never completely died out. In isolated areas of Sweden, a modified runic calendar system remained in use until the early 20th century. This survival demonstrates the extraordinary resilience of runic tradition and its ability to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining its essential character. Each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, yet also raises new questions. The story of runic writing reminds us that cultural transformations are rarely simple or linear. Instead, they involve complex interactions between tradition and innovation, resistance and adaptation, continuing to influence how we understand the relationship between writing, magic, and cultural identity. The runic system represents one of history's most fascinating intersections of practical communication and spiritual power. Unlike modern alphabets, which primarily serve communicative functions, runes operated simultaneously as letters, magical symbols, and gateways to supernatural forces. This multi-layered nature made them unique among ancient writing systems. In the realm of magical religious practice, runes were understood as more than mere symbols. They were considered living entities, each with its own spirit and power. The Norse god Odin himself was said to have gained the knowledge of runes through tremendous sacrifice, hanging for 9 days and nights on the world tree Yggdrasil. This divine origin story elevated runic writing beyond mere human invention to the status of sacred knowledge revealed by the gods themselves. Communication runes served practical daily needs, but were never entirely separate from their magical aspects. Even in mundane messages, the act of carving runes was approached with a degree of reverence. Merchants might mark their goods with ownership runes, but these marks were often understood to provide protection as well as identification. Letters between individuals frequently included protective formulas alongside their main message, blending practical communication with magical safeguards. The magical application of runes followed complex rules and systems. Different combinations of runes, known as bind runes, were created by overlapping multiple runic characters to generate specific magical effects. These might be carved on amulets for protection, weapons for victory, or drinking horns for blessing. The positioning of runes, the direction of carving, and even the time of day for inscription were all considered crucial to their magical efficacy. Ritual runes required particularly careful preparation and execution. A rune master would often begin by dyeing the runes red, traditionally with their own blood or red ochre, symbolizing the life force needed to activate the magical properties. Some inscriptions were temporary, carved on ice or drawn in sand, their power lying in the act of creation rather than permanent preservation. Others were deliberately hidden inside objects or buried, working their magic unseen. Commemorative runes represented perhaps the most public face of runic tradition. These monumental inscriptions, often found on standing stones, served multiple purposes. They honored the dead, marked territory, celebrated achievements, and demonstrated the patron's power and wealth. Many of these stones combined historical record with magical protection, their inscriptions carefully designed to benefit both the living and the dead. Each individual rune carried multiple layers of meaning. Take, for example, the rune Ansus, associated with the god Odin. In practical writing, it represented the sound A, but it also symbolized divine inspiration, communication with the gods, and the power of spoken words. In divination, it might indicate incoming messages or divine guidance. In magical workings, it could be used to enhance mental abilities or facilitate communication with the spiritual realm. The rune Fehu, while simply representing F in writing, carried deep associations with wealth, cattle, the primary form of wealth in Norse society, and mobile property. In magical applications, it might be used in spells for prosperity or protection of resources. Its divinatory meanings included new beginnings, wealth acquisition, and the need to care for one's resources wisely. Runic inscriptions often employed sophisticated intellectual concepts. Some runes were carved in mirror image or upside down to create specific magical effects. Others were written in complex codes, where the position or number of branches on a rune would change its meaning. These cryptographic runes demonstrated the intellectual sophistication of runic masters and their understanding of mathematical and linguistic principles. The timing of runic inscriptions often aligned with astronomical events. Certain runes were considered more powerful when carved during particular phases of the moon or at specific times of the year. This integration of celestial knowledge with runic practice reveals the deep connection between runic lore and other forms of ancient wisdom. Protection runes formed a distinct category with their own rules and applications. These might be carved on doorways to guard homes, on ships to ensure safe voyages, or on weapons to grant victory in battle. The protection might be general or highly specific, with different combinations of runes used to guard against particular threats or negative influences. Healing runes represented another specialized application. These inscriptions might be carved on items to be consumed, such as drinks or medicines, or on objects placed near the sick person. The runes were believed to drive out illness and promote healing, working in conjunction with herbal remedies and other medical practices of the time. Love and fertility runes formed yet another category, used in matters of the heart and reproduction. These might be carved on personal items, incorporated into wedding ceremonies, or used in spells to attract love or ensure fertility. The subtle interplay between different runes in these applications showed deep psychological insight into human relationships and desires. The intellectual sophistication of runic systems extended to their use in legal matters. Specific combinations of runes could serve as signatures or seals, validating contracts and agreements. The permanent nature of carved runes made them ideal for recording legal decisions and property boundaries, while their magical associations added divine authority to these declarations. The story of runic writing is intrinsically linked to a vast network of cultural exchanges that shaped Northern Europe. Through trade routes, migrations, and conquests, the runic tradition both influenced and was influenced by numerous other writing systems and cultures, creating a rich tapestry of interconnected linguistic and cultural developments. The earliest interactions between runic writing and other systems occurred during the Roman period, when Germanic peoples came into contact with Latin writing through trade and military encounters. While runes show some influence from Latin letters, they represent a unique adaptation rather than a simple copying. The angular forms of runic characters, so different from the curved lines of Mediterranean scripts, reflect both practical considerations and cultural independence. Viking expansion played a crucial role in spreading runic knowledge across Europe and beyond. As Norse traders and settlers established new communities from Ireland to Russia, they carried their runic tradition with them. In places like the British Isles, runic writing merged with local traditions, creating distinctive variations such as the Anglo-Saxon Futhorc. These adaptations show how runic writing could maintain its essential character, while incorporating new sounds and concepts needed for different languages. The trading networks established by Viking merchants created opportunities for cultural exchange that profoundly influenced runic development. In trading centers like Hedeby and Birka, runic writing came into contact with Arabic, Greek, and other writing systems. Evidence suggests that runic merchants developed specialized forms of commercial runes, adapting their traditional writing system to meet the needs of international trade. Eastern influences on runic writing came through the Varangian trade routes that connected Scandinavia with Byzantium and the Islamic world. Norse traders and warriors who served in Constantinople brought back new ideas and cultural practices that influenced how runes were used. Some runic inscriptions show awareness of Byzantine artistic styles, while others incorporate Eastern motifs into their designs. The spread of Christianity brought perhaps the most significant external influence on runic tradition. As Latin literacy accompanied Christian missionaries, runic writing adapted rather than disappeared. In many areas, particularly Sweden, runic inscriptions actually increased after Christianization, with runic masters incorporating Christian prayers and symbols into traditional forms. This synthesis created unique expressions of Christian ideas through runic medium. Commercial interactions along the Baltic Sea created a distinctive runic culture in trading communities. Merchants developed systems of runic marks for ownership and accounting, while craftsmen incorporated runic elements into their designs. These practical applications show how runic writing could adapt to new commercial and social contexts while maintaining its cultural significance. The influence of Celtic cultures on runic tradition became particularly evident in areas of Viking settlement in Britain and Ireland. Here, runic inscriptions sometimes incorporated Celtic artistic elements, while Celtic manuscripts occasionally included runic characters. This cultural fusion produced unique artistic and literary expressions that combined elements from both traditions. Linguistic contact through trade and settlement led to modifications in runic writing to accommodate new sounds and concepts. The transition from Elder to Younger Futhark, while reducing the number of characters, actually coincided with increased runic literacy and use. This paradoxical development suggests sophisticated linguistic adaptation to changing social and cultural needs. The migration of Germanic peoples across Europe carried runic knowledge far from its Nordic homeland. Gothic tribes took runic concepts east and south, while Anglo-Saxon migrations brought runic writing to Britain. Each movement contributed to the development of local runic variations, demonstrating the system's adaptability to different linguistic and cultural contexts. Archaeological evidence continues to reveal unexpected connections between runic writing and distant cultures. Runic inscriptions have been found on objects from the Middle East, while Eastern coins bearing runic graffiti show how far these writing traditions could travel. These discoveries highlight the extensive networks of cultural exchange that characterize the runic era. The legacy of these interactions continues to influence how we understand cultural exchange in medieval Europe. Rather than seeing runic writing as an isolated Nordic phenomenon, we now recognize it as part of a complex web of literary and cultural traditions that spanned continents. This understanding helps explain both the resilience and adaptability of runic writing throughout its long history. The enduring legacy of runic writing extends far beyond its historical period, influencing not only subsequent writing systems, but also shaping modern cultural movements and our understanding of human communication. This ancient system continues to resonate through time, offering valuable insights into how societies preserve and transmit knowledge. The influence of runic writing on later systems can be traced through various medieval and early modern scripts. The angular aesthetic of runes influenced the development of medieval manuscript hands, particularly in regions with strong Norse cultural connections. In Iceland, for example, manuscript traditions maintained runic-inspired elements well into the modern era, creating a unique bridge between ancient and contemporary writing practices. Modern typography and design continue to draw inspiration from runic forms. The clean, geometric lines of runic characters have influenced contemporary logo design, digital fonts, and architectural lettering. This aesthetic influence demonstrates how ancient writing systems can inform modern visual communication, creating connections across millennia of human expression. The revival of interest in runes during the 20th and 21st centuries has taken many forms. Academic studies have expanded dramatically, with new archaeological discoveries and improved research methods providing fresh insights into runic practices. This scholarly renaissance has helped separate historical fact from romantic fiction, offering a more nuanced understanding of how runes functioned in ancient societies. Contemporary spiritual movements have embraced runes as tools for personal growth and divination. While these modern interpretations often differ from historical practices, they demonstrate the continuing power of runic symbols to inspire and guide people in their spiritual journeys. This modern adaptation shows how ancient systems can remain relevant while taking on new meanings for contemporary practitioners. Popular culture has also played a significant role in maintaining interest in runes. From fantasy literature to video games, runic writing has captured the imagination of new generations. While these representations may not always align with historical accuracy, they have helped preserve public awareness of this ancient writing system and sparked curiosity about authentic runic traditions. The preservation of runic knowledge serves as a crucial case study in how societies maintain cultural memory. The transition from active use to historical artifact and then to renewed cultural significance illustrates the complex ways in which ancient knowledge systems can survive and evolve. This process offers valuable lessons for preserving other endangered writing systems and cultural practices. Digital technology has opened new avenues for studying and preserving runic heritage. Advanced imaging techniques reveal previously invisible inscriptions, while digital databases make runic texts accessible to scholars worldwide. These technological tools have revolutionized our ability to understand and share knowledge about runic writing, ensuring its preservation for future generations. The study of runes has contributed significantly to our understanding of language evolution and writing system development. The ways in which runic writing adapted to different languages and cultural contexts provides valuable insights into how writing systems evolve. This knowledge proves invaluable for linguists and anthropologists studying contemporary language change and development. Archaeological findings continue to expand our understanding of runic practices, sometimes challenging established theories. Each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, demonstrating that our knowledge of ancient writing systems is never complete. This ongoing process of discovery and interpretation keeps runic studies vibrant and relevant. Educational initiatives focusing on runic heritage have emerged worldwide, ranging from academic programs to popular workshops. These efforts help ensure that knowledge of runic writing remains alive and accessible, while also promoting understanding of the broader cultural context in which runes developed and flourished. The preservation of runic knowledge intersects with broader efforts to maintain cultural diversity in our increasingly globalized world. Understanding how runic writing survived and adapted over centuries offers valuable lessons for preserving other traditional knowledge systems facing pressure from dominant cultural forces. As we look to the future, the legacy of runic writing reminds us of the importance of maintaining connections with our cultural heritage while allowing it to evolve and remain relevant. The continued fascination with runes demonstrates how ancient wisdom can speak to contemporary needs and interests, bridging past and present in meaningful ways. Which rune fascinates you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below and immerse yourself in this mystical universe of ancestral symbols. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Medieval Archives for more fascinating historical content. Join our growing community of history enthusiasts and help keep these ancient traditions alive.